I'm ready to slash and burn. Jason and I were really good buddies from college, and
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I'm excited because this is apparently the first time ever on a podcast. I have all three Battlebots judges, Derek, Jason, and Lisa. Everybody, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So very excited. Obviously, I've had Jason on the show before, but to have all three of you is great. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff and hopefully, clear up some different questions for the fans, either ones that they've had or maybe some questions that they didn't even know that they had. We'll kind of talk about everything. So the first thing that I want to get into is just the kind of the history of Battlebots judging, like the whole process, because obviously you've all been competitors, and as you know, it used to be kind of a rotating panel of judges where there wasn't really a lot of consistency. That's obviously changed, and the categories under which you're scoring have changed. It used to be aggression, damage, and strategy. Then later on, control was added. And then later on than that, strategy was dropped back in 2019. So, kind of whoever wants to go first, just talk about the history of that process in judging with Battlebots.
I think we should go back even further to like the original Comedy Central days, where it was like the nameless, faceless red jackets that decided the winning robot. And people probably don't remember this, but it was an aggregate score. It wasn't like, judge 1, 2, 3. It was like they summed it up. And I don't know if you guys remember any of the categories. I certainly don't.
But it was like 45 points, right? It was like
45
judge.
It was huge.
Yeah.
I was rare. You got a split decision.
Yeah,
split
like a 20.
Were more exciting because they're so rare.
It was like a 22 to 23.
Yeah.
I think I won a 21 to 24 match once, but I don't remember any of the ways that they scored them. I'm sure it's out there, but
even before then, though, there, in Robot Wars, it was like audience clapping.
Yeah,
it was cheering.
Yeah, there
and
was
the rumbles. Yeah,
there was no TV show, so they didn't need to have like standard and practices doing game show rules.
Yeah, even in the Comedy Central days up until the end, the rumbles were always audience vote with the cheerometer. Whoa, who's cheering louder? Cheer off.
Yeah, I was the recipient of an unfortunate cheer off result.
Oh.
It's like this is my experience with judging unfairness with T minus and complete control, and I think it was the major rumble, and they called me first and then T minus second, and they were supposed to invert. They had to do a second cheer off. They were supposed to invert the order of the calling, and they didn't do it. And invariably, the second robot wins because the crowd knows what they need to achieve to push it over the edge. But I'm not bitter. I'm just saying, I've been, the victim of these things, and I get over it.
That was 22 years ago.
Yeah, you're totally over it.
Totally over it.
Yeah.
It's just on my YouTube, and in the description is like unfair call. Audience knows nothing.
Yeah, but I think strategy was probably there from the beginning, and it stuck around a long time, which is kind of surprising given that the judges can't read the competitors' minds. And even if the competitors did write a nice essay and hand it to the judges or tell them, I'm going to do this and that, I think there may be 2 builders ever who actually stick to a strategy for 3 whole minutes, and for everybody else, it's out the window. And there's too much assumption and guessing. Like, that was a good strategy, wasn't it?
Do you guys remember when we dropped that? I've already lost the timeline.
I think it was, wasn't it 2 years? Like, it was 3 years
in 2019. That's when strategy got dropped.
It stuck around a long time.
Yeah, so I guess I did 2 seasons with it. 2 or 3 seasons, I don't know.
I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it, but that lasted not too long. I really like the current scoring. It does seem a lot more like we've all had very, very, very similar scores the entire this past season, right? With the Matrix. So I think that goes to show how good it is and how it's like really working.
Yeah, it couldn't have said that better. Now I'm curious, for each of you, because obviously you at one point or another had to make the transition from being a competitor to judging. And I mean, Derek and Lisa, you were both guest judges in season 3, and then in season 4, Jason joined, and you were all, now the panel that you are today. So kind of each of you take me through that process of going from competing to judging.
Well, I'll start, but basically after season 2, I was done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. My return to BattleBots was short-lived, and I achieved my
pretty
goals,
cool.
which was
That's
to win
cool.
one fight. I was like, all I want to win one fight, have my robot do the thing it's supposed to do, and then I was good. And so there was a bunch of confluence of things, having a baby, getting a house, all this other stuff where it's just like, okay, I can't manage the actual robot building. And so that was it. And then when season 3 was starting up, Greg was looking for someone to replace Fawn because Fawn couldn't make it. And so I think he called both Lisa and I, and I was able to do it. So actually I was full-time on season 3, and it was me and a rotating cast of Discovery level celebrities, which was fun. It was, no offense to Jason or Lisa, but it was interesting
Thanks.
having someone different to talk to every day.
Oh,
And
okay.
you got to dress nicer, you had more outfits, right?
Yeah. It was like every day new wardrobe. And so, it wasn't ABC. I imagine when it was the ABC show, it was even more splashed out for the judges because this was the first year of Discovery. But they were, putting in that effort. And then I think they realized that there was no value in having non-robot people in these roles. I guess that, we'll see, but they made the decision to bring in ex competitors, which I think was a good decision. It'll add a lot more credibility. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think Greg did call both of us, and then I'm pretty sure I was also offered the entire season, but I had already some plans in the works. So unfortunately I just had to be like there for I think 3 days or so. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun, and yeah, every day different wardrobe. But yeah, I think it was when I got the call that BattleBots was coming back. So this was like ABC days, 2015, which seems crazy. I was just like, I have to be in it. Like, I have to fight again. There's no way. Like, I've fought in every single BattleBots up until now. If it's coming back, I have to be there. And I think when I started judging, though, that was because I had Plan X and I had Mega Tento, and I just also, had a lot of life events and was pretty pooped. And building robots takes a lot of time and effort, and like 3 a.m. every night after work. So yeah, with so basically I was like, I'm ready to judge. That would be awesome. So because I can't not be there. Like, if I'm not fighting, and I love driving robots, but if I can't do that, or just don't have the energy, I want to be there and watch every single match and judge them. So
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of what he said. I don't know. You're down here for me, Derek, but I don't know where you are. What he said. Yeah, 2015, I got the call to compete, and I think we had a 6-week heads up, which was crazy. And I had starting a new job, and my new manager didn't know what BattleBots was, so there was no chance I was going to get off for that. And then Greg did ask me. I remember asking me to judge in 2016, and I was so busy, new baby, etc. And I think I was saying like I can be there like Friday afternoon and Sunday like evening and maybe Tuesday. Does that work for you? Like, no, that's we can't fit your random weird schedule. Sorry. Like, yeah, I don't blame you. And then I competed, and whatever, guess it was 2016. Yeah, it was 2016 I competed, so I guess 2017 or 2018 he asked me, and I was just too busy. But yeah, for all of us, it's just an obsession or a compulsion. We want to be involved in some way or other, and it's fantastic being on both sides of the box now. So as a competitor, your future and even your paycheck can be in the hands of the judges, and so it's an interesting dynamic. And then I know how important judging is, so when I had I'll call it the honor or the pleasure of being a judge myself, like I realize what the people on the other side of the box are thinking and how important it is to them. So it's something I take seriously, and it's something that I know it's super important to all those people who've been toiling and maxing out their credit cards and doing all-nighters, and they got to get a fair shake. They can't get a bad judgment. And a lot of them did come up to me at whatever event that was and say, we're so glad that former builders are the judges now. The other folks who are rotating in were good judges and all, but it's just not consistent, and they didn't have the intimacy with robots. I think any one of us, if a robot gets semi-crippled and starts crab walking a little bit, I think we can spot it in a second, like, oh, one of those wheels isn't working. But I think most people watching might not catch on to nuances like that we've seen in our own robots enough times. We know our robots failing slightly, and we're compensating drive diagonal, which will be kind of straight because this motor is not working right anymore. So we can catch those things that I think other people can't.
Yeah, in season 3, I did a lot of that, like explaining kind of after the fight, like, okay, so this is what happened, at least with like what that failure was,
Right.
And so maybe I had an outsized influence on season 3. I didn't intend to, but when you're judging with people don't have the, fighting robot experience exactly, it's you do your best to try and inform them. So I don't need to do that now, and we all sit very far apart, so there's not a lot of discussing. COVID onward, we've been spread out, so
right.
there hasn't been a lot of
I
talking.
we were never allowed to discuss before we write down our scores. We can say, hey, did you see if that wheel came off or so forth, but we can't discuss like who we are scoring for or against or anything like that. But so it's fine that we were apart, but I really miss being able to, like, between matches, be able to talk to you guys. You're like
lonely.
so far away, and there's that sneeze guard, and yeah, there's a lot of downtime. So
yeah, the last 2 years were lonely, and honestly, 3 seasons ago, before COVID, I spent a lot of time in the pits because these are our friends, former friends, new friends, and I want to look inside the robots because they're heads and shoulders above the things I used to do, and I'm not familiar with the new tech, and I want to go see how these robots are put together. And that's maybe even more than sitting next to you two. I miss not feeling comfortable mingling with 400 people in the pits, and I want to be that guy who got sick and messed up the production because I wanted to put my nose in the robots. So we all kind of kept to ourselves the last couple of years, which is a drag, but I got a lot of work done in the downtime.
yeah, but Jason, I guess you touched on 2 things that I want to also address, which is like, it's not just that we want to be there and we want to judge. It's like all of our friends are there. And for me, this is the one vacation out of my normal job that I go to every year, where it's like, if I get a new job, I'm like, in the contract, just FYI, I need 2 weeks every year to go to this Battlebots thing. And they're usually like super down with that. But it's like, this is the only time where we get to see a lot of our friends. Battlebots is people from around the world, other countries, other parts of the US, and like we get to see everyone and sometimes hang out, but usually at least through like the plexi, we get to wave.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The show doesn't touch on that this is like one big love fest, and there's a huge social aspect to it that maybe that'd make for some good TV if they get the cameras on people and they get some emotions to make it more of a reality show.
I have a
sharing.
slight.
Oh, go for it.
I just have a slightly different take on that. That I Like I like all these people, but I'm not actually friends with most of them. So it's a different scene for me. So me not socializing with them is fine. I like catching up with people, but it's not, I don't know. It sounds terrible. And no, like, I don't mean to. It's like, we're all different people. And it's kind of always, it's been something I've done, but it's not, I don't have that same homecoming feeling. Maybe because I'm most hated driver. That's entirely possible.
I was gonna say this is because you're like the bad boy of
Pretty
Battlebots.
Derek Young.
Yeah, just never, just too prickly.
That was
don't know.
23 years ago. Come on,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
get
god.
over it.
But I love being there and I love watching the things and I love, going through the pits and seeing all the new tech and, chatting with the builders and stuff. But I tend not to socialize and it makes it easier for me too, because like I have very few personal conflicts with calling these matches in any direction. Not saying that my other judge friends do, but I think it makes it easier for me when it's like, that's removed from it. I definitely feel more comfortable hanging out with the people who are on the production side, who are ex BattleBots people. That feels like more, to the spirit of what I do there. So.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think a lot of what you talked about are really good points because, obviously there's always fans out there who see matches and they're like, the judges don't know what they're talking about and, whatever they say. But I would argue that the three of you are some of the most qualified people to be judges and to judge these matches for how much time you have spent in this sport as competitors and kind of the expectations of these robots inside and out. So do I always agree with every judge's decision that I've seen? No, but I also respect like your level of expertise. And I mean, I think that people really need to think about it from maybe that angle of things, which kind of leads into my next topic of conversation, which is just some of the matches that I know specifically fans have expressed feelings about one way or another. All of the matches that I want to bring up are split decision matches because I think that the unanimous ones tend to not get, in that controversy realm because they're unanimous for a reason. I mean, they're usually pretty clear cut and there's not a whole lot of, back and forth about, oh, it should have gone this way. Split decisions, obviously, if the three of you didn't agree on it at the time, then there's probably going to be a lot of people that feel different ways about it. So the first match,
that's what Facebook and Reddit are for.
Right. Exactly. The first match that I want to bring up, which was interesting for me because like something my boyfriend said the other day is he was like, usually if there's a split decision, whichever robot Lisa gives the decision to wins. and there is one match that is, considered very, people feel a lot of different ways about it, where that was not the case, was Hydra versus Tantrum last year. That, Lisa voted for Hydra in that match, and the two of you voted for Tantrum. And I know that the first time that I watched it not obviously when it happened, but when it first aired on Discovery, I was a lot more close in my thinking of how that match went, where I was like, oh, it really could have gone either way. Maybe Tantrum did get it because they seem to do a lot of, damage and things like that. But then when I rewatched it, I kind of felt a little bit differently about it. So I'm really curious from the recollection that you all have, what what went into those decisions and what you kind of think about that match looking at it in hindsight.
Can I back up one step?
Yeah.
And pull out a stat? Well, not even a stat, but this is just from, again, I think I was talking before we started recording about how we aggregated all our scores together in the off season. We haven't done this yet for the last season, but basically there's no clear person who is the dissenting vote. It's not Lisa, it's not me, it's not Jason. So anyone who is saying that it's like, oh, it's always Jason, it's always Derek, or, my kid has some theory. It's like, oh, whatever robot they call second is the one who's going to lose. It's like, no,
Yeah.
believe me, they would not be that obvious. It is not true. It's pretty even distribution, or it's like plus minus 1 or 2 fights.
Yeah,
So,
but literally, like I've seen Greg, one of the producers, do this where he takes our cards and he shuffles them. So there's absolutely no thought being put into who.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's
We take
also
turns
maybe,
doing it, yeah.
yeah. I
I've
think
never
that's
seen
one
the
of legal
process of
things.
how it gets handed to Farouk and what order he reads them in. That's
Yeah,
cool.
he's just like-
We take turns being the tiebreaker. Yeah.
yeah.
But there's not a single one of us who is the one dissenting voice all the time. It's quite an even spread around. Anyways, back to
Even
this
though-
fight that I don't remember anything about.
Yeah, we used to
Hydra
get a
flipped-
lot of
Hydra flipped Tantrum a
Yeah.
lot. Tantrum didn't really slow down. Hydra kind of stayed in the middle. Hydra did this.
Yeah, I remember that
Tantrum
part.
did this.
What I remember most is all the angry people after it who were convinced, and this is a classic trope in America, is that if you lose, it's because of some grand conspiracy. That's the thing that I found most painful. It's like, oh, come on. Like, you can say we're like bad at judging or whatever, but there's no conspiracy here. It's not a, Californians banding together to eliminate Wisconsin, although
We got
I'm from
representing.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I wasn't
That's
gonna say
why,
it, but
hey, you
But
voted for
Tantrum,
Wisconsin
there's
bots.
Aaron from Tantrum is from, he's gonna kill me because I think Illinois. Anyways, most people are Midwestern at some point. Like,
Ohio.
yeah,
Not a
there
lot
you
of
go.
Ohio
I'm from
bots.
Southern Ontario, which they call the East Coast of Canada, but it's the Midwest.
The short story is we have trouble remembering what happened some time ago, and sometimes there are edits for whatever reason. Sometimes there'll be a stick, not in this fight, I don't think, but sometimes there'll be a stick, and then there'll be an unstick, and you might see one shot cut to the next shot, and the robots have shifted if you're really keen and you use your pause and your rewind and whatever, and your slow-mo buttons on your DVR. And then sometimes if you time a match, it's not actually 3 minutes when it's on TV, because maybe something's a little trimmed and things are edited for some reason. And it's conceivable that in some cases what we saw with our naked eyes live is not 100% the same as what ended up being aired on TV, and it's conceivable that that would lead to a different perception of which robot won. So that and you get the camera angles. We do have fantastic seats. I stand up a lot because there's a bar kind of right
Yeah.
at eye height. And I want to be over that bar, and I want to look down and look in the corners. Well, I don't want to look at my TV screen. I want to actually see the robots. So, sometimes the camera guys don't catch it all.
This fight is coming back to me.
Oh, good. Answer the question.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And I
Thanks,
remember
Tony.
my feelings on it, which was, yes, Hydra used its weapon repeatedly, but Tantrum, as I recall, took no damage. Like basically nothing happened to them. And what it ended up being was like one of those fights with like a robot with an ineffective weapon. And you just can't, I think the scoring system as it exists doesn't reward that behavior. Like it sort of falls under aggression, but it's, I guess you can mark it up to aggression and control slightly, but the fact is producing no damage. It's like, it's hard to win a fight that way. And ultimately it was Tantrum, as I recall, did the lion's share of the damage in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be
So-
more aggression. Like, no matter what the
Right.
weapon does or doesn't do, it'd be more aggression. Like, and this was before the Matrix, right? So,
This was
This is what the
Matrix.
Matrix
Yeah, it was season
Oh.
6, so
well,
Well,
if it
okay,
was
no.
with the Matrix,
What Matrix? What's this Matrix you
let's
speak of?
pull out the Matrix.
I was just gonna go through my 1,000 freaking cards to see what my score was. So,
No spoilers. No
so
spoilers
this is
from the
why,
current season.
yeah, no spoiler. Do we?
All right.
Yeah,
We
there
can
you
play
go.
that game.
So the reason sometimes we can't remember everything is every season we watch, what is it, 250 fights or something like that?
150 something.
150. So,
That many.
just in the beginning or
That many fights, I think it was. Oh, these are actual Battlebots pens. These are judges' pens. I saved my pens.
Are you guys looking
See-
for the
You can see how much
Tantrum.
ink I used.
Tantrum Hydra was the
I'm not-
semifinal,
I'm not gonna find it.
right?
It's gonna make for a bad podcast. I have Tantrum Fusion. It's kind of
There's
close.
like 4 people on the screen, so one of us can just look stupid. Wait,
Or 2 of us.
This was, can someone remind me,
Oh.
was this a semifinal or quarterfinal?
wait, no, that's too much.
It was the
Or
semifinal.
Semifinal. Well, here are a couple things. Hydra lost its tip,
Yes.
which crippled it a little bit. What I recall, I think, is that on TV, Tantrum didn't use its spinning.
Oh,
I think
yes,
it had
that's right.
punching, but no spinning for like the second half-ish of the match. But we believe, based on our hazy memories, I'm going to take better notes next year. I only have some notes from last time, but I think it was demoed as operational after the
Yes.
buzzer, which was not caught on video, and that is a huge factor, whether or not it was caught. And this is what I'll get on my soapbox. Something that I was pushing for and was not officially implemented, but I think it's in everybody's best interest that when the buzzer buzzes, that the robots do a victory dance, and that they should spin or move, and they should do their weapon. And that's cool. Like it's the crowd's gonna like it, and it's and maybe they can drive back to the square or drive to the corner for easy turn off by the driver's doors, and that should be recorded and that should be broadcast, because that tells you 100% what is working on this robot after the fight, because it's not always clear to us, frankly, or the commentators, or to the audience, or to the TV folks. And that's really super important, having that bit of information can sway a fight one way or the other. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. But of course, that's going to be on the refs to put that into their, procedures and remind the drivers. And the match end is always like such a, charged moment that having an instruction like that, we'll see if it happens. That's like I'm going to be real cynical about it and say, I'll believe it when I see it.
And
I'll
if you
make
don't do
sure
it, it works
John
against
watches
you.
this. So, I'll make sure John Remar watches this.
Oh yeah, if you don't do it, it works against you. As a builder, if you don't do it, like the judge might, assume everything broke at 259.
Okay, so yeah, make it on the competitors, but yeah, as a competitor, I would never remember to do that.
I would.
I know, we're different people.
I like other builders. They're my friends.
So update, I think this is one of the cards that Greg took because it was such a controversial one.
You have copies, don't you? Do you have the day and
I think
time?
I took it. But I took photos of everything. Fucking okay. Sorry. I gotta pull this
Whoa,
thing.
this
to
is a
turn the
family
light on.
program. Lisa
Oh,
doesn't
is
have
it?
kids.
No one
I mean,
told me
not
that.
really, not really. Trust me, there's been some other things that have happened.
Oh,
my
here.
my mother-in-law watched my last interview, so I'm gonna keep it clean.
Yeah, but she's over like 12, right?
But my
Um,
mother-in-law. I respect her.
Okay. Hydra Tantrum. So I said 222 for Hydra, 311 for Tantrum. So I gave Tantrum the 1-up on damage,
Mhm.
but Hydra was, 2-1 for aggression and control. Do you guys know what you did? I think it was
Oh, I found mine.
Oh,
No.
geez.
I found
Day was
Hydra
it?
huge. That's
What's
that's
the
a good
day
one.
or the session?
Classic.
uh
I got them scheduled. I got them by date.
September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Did we send those cards to Greg at some point?
This is the wrong season.
You could edit some of this out. We're just like flipping. We're just doing filing. So
Good.
If you have the scorecards from the champions episodes that have already aired, you might want to get those out.
Yeah. I got
Yeah,
my
that's what I
parking
was saying.
pass. Here's my
No
parking
spoilers.
pass.
I don't have any of my stuff.
This is gonna be my kid's college fund, and I auction this on eBay. Get some.
I'm gonna start judging this interview.
I'm doing a poor job with control right now.
Okay. Okay.
I too am doing a poor job with control. I already regret everything I've said.
Yeah, what sucks is that we can never do like even, you know? I guess that's the whole point.
That's
but
that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Start over. Okay, go back 5 minutes. Oh, and this is the marker we used on the matrix.
Oh my God.
The dry erase marker.
Jason.
I might just not edit any of this. This is all far too interesting.
Yeah, what were we talking about? Okay.
We were talking about
September
Hydra versus Tantrum.
I'm
But
close.
yeah.
The California conspiracy.
I haven't heard that one, but I'm not on Facebook anymore, so
Yeah, you missed
Less
it all.
than nice.
That's like I said, that's the stuff that sticks with me after the episodes. Isn't what my decision was. It's the ridiculous internet, how they feel about it. You know, it doesn't really affect me in my role. It's just it has a lasting impression because of its duration. You know, it'll go on forever. People will.
well, I
care
got
about
a
this.
fan email yesterday saying that I was the best judge.
Did your mom write that?
Yeah, I love that people still comment on YouTubes of the fights from the Comedy Central days. Like, there's still interest in stuff that happened so long ago that people will.
That's the internet. If it's on YouTube,
There we
it
go.
probably just
There we
happened.
go. There it is.
Yeah,
There it
when-
Yeah, I
is.
when
think
we're
I
different- Yeah,
I think
when
I
we're
had the same
different,
one
we're
as you.
different by one number. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
when we're
just
off,
aggression.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's what I was gonna say is that I know you were talking about like split decisions being usually more controversial, but I do want to point out that a lot of times people are like, what the hell? This was like a unanimous decision, but it's like all three of us could have been 5-6, like teetering on the edge. And it was definitely not like an easy decision. So unanimous is not always like super heavy-handed. It's a lot of times it's like right on the middle. It could really go either way.
Right. Okay, judging anecdote. Season 1, Dr. Inferno Jr. versus Alpha, maybe Beta Raptor, Chuck Pitzer. I was arguably doing better for the first 2 minutes of the match, and then my cheapo foam tires started shredding on the Battlebots floor, which is like rough sandpaper. Little pieces of black foam were falling out, and then I was slowing down, and the tide turned, and he was definitely had the upper hand at the end. And this went to the judges, and back then it must have been 3 judges with 3 points apiece, because it was an 8-1 score. And in my opinion, my heart, like, it felt like a really close match where the tide turned. It was kind of even, and I was like, 8-1, like that. 8-1 doesn't feel like the right score that should be applied to a match that felt so close. Like, shouldn't have been 4-5 or 6-3, but that's the way it goes. Like, everybody could be teetering, and all these bits flipped to one side, but each individual number was almost a toss-up. I mean, if enough of them go one way, it seems like a landslide, even though maybe it wasn't really.
Have you rewatched that fight and applied the matrix?
There was strategy. They didn't know my strategy.
Okay, cool. So now that we have
Okay.
looked at that match, now I'm
I
going
hope
to
everyone's-
talk. I'm
I
going
hope
to talk
everyone's
about this
satisfied.
collectively.
But we cleared that up. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Fair
the
Next.
two matches with Glitch that were split decisions versus Retrograde and Uppercut. One obviously was very different than the other. The Glitch Retrograde match was probably one of the closest matches that I've ever seen. Very back and forth. Both robots took damage, but of course, Glitch, I mean, really that whole bracket, they were having some mobility issues. And I think that's what people were seeing. And then with the uppercut match, double KO goes to a judge's decision. And I think that some people were surprised it was split one way or the other. So like those two matches, I kind of want to get some insight on with where those went, because very, very different matches to me.
Do you remember which I scored for? Who I scored for? I don't remember.
There's
honestly.
retrograde, glitch. I've
I
got
just watched these. I just watched these a few days
I
ago.
know. I just watched them too. I should know, but
know.
I don't remember.
I feel like you had glitch in both of
Okay.
those, Derek.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Glitch uppercut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Jason went uppercut. And
we went
Lisa and I went
glitch.
glitch on the uppercut fight. And then on the previous one, I don't know who the dissenting was, but it wasn't me.
It's always Jason. No.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
so
for
my-
glitch.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. We're printing here at home. We're printing out the brackets and we're filling them in. I'm playing with my kids as the new episodes are airing, and we fill them in, and sometimes at the end of the fight broadcast, like wow, that's not how I recalled it. Like, why do you judge that way, Daddy? I don't know. Look at the
Yeah.
Matrix. He's the Matrix, kid.
I often don't. Yeah. Even having just watched this episode, I don't remember who I went for. So when I'm watching the fight, I'm like, my kids are all in anticipation, being like, did you make the right call? And
Oh, we did
Okay,
the
yeah.
same one there. Yeah.
Do we match?
So was I
Okay,
for
interesting.
retrograde?
So Derek must have gone for retrograde.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Don't remember, but yeah. I
And
do know that
glitch
the
was-
yeah.
glitch is tricky because the weapon was insanely destructive, but every fight their drive was hobbled. I don't know if it was a clearance thing or a traction thing or what, but I think they
It
were
was because it was
functioning.
Omni wheels. Like I
But even
can't.
so,
I just wanted to go in there and take a hammer to the Omni wheels because I loved the robots. Seemed so great, and I love them. This is their first time. I was very excited that like for a first time robot that they like did so well. But I was just like, no, you're a vertical spinner, like a drum spinner. You can't just slide around. Like, why do you have Omni wheels? So I think they probably got the idea though this time. Like, I hope next time they have other wheels, but we'll see.
and part of it is looking. We had a good view, and their wheels were exposed from the top side, and often you could see if their little wheels were spinning, and that tells you the robot's working, but it's unfortunately stuck on something versus the robot is disabled, which there's a nuance of a difference there.
Yeah, Glitch had a real like drunken master kind of approach. Like it was bizarre. And I think the main takeaway I had from it is the geometry of that robot is incredibly good. Because this is a robot that ostensibly can't drive, and it wins fight after fight after fight.
I know.
Which is a little worrying, because clearly Battlebots requires robots to show some amount of control for the show to be interesting. You can't just have two robots randomly bumping into each other and then one explodes. So I hope they get their mobility issues fixed. And I think, there's more to come. So.
Yeah, I think it's a first time thing. Like I saw this, I think it was 3 years ago with Tantrum, where the same thing was bugging the hell out of me. Like they didn't have Omnis, but it's like when you haven't been in the box before and you don't know the surface and you don't know how much clearance you really need and all of these factors, like there's a huge learning gap. And so sometimes you can fix it in the pits and sometimes you can't. So yeah.
3 seasons of mine have been ruined due to not enough ground clearance of my robots. Like out of how many? 7? So I have a
Well,
bad
it's
track
good to
record
see you
for that.
learned your lesson, Derek. Yeah.
I know.
Judge.
Yeah, quit.
That's the solution. Hey, it's actually working out pretty well for you.
Yeah. I just can't figure out that box. Oof.
But one thing I think we might have mentioned before is I'm going something to 15 minutes ago about experience is I don't know who in this world has judged the most fights. If somebody's made a spreadsheet, like Judge Dave might be up there. Derek, you're probably top 3, and we're probably top 5 or top 10 at least. If you look at big events, not just Battlebots, but big events, and you do pick up lots of things there. And if they get some other judges, they better be seasoned veterans too. If we can't make it. But we all want to return. We love it. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last specific matches that I want to talk about, we are fresh off of that episode, and that would be the split decisions with Bloodsport against Blacksmith and Scorpios.
That was that, you know, I came upstairs right as my kids turned that on. So who won? We're behind.
Bloodsport won the first one and Scorpios won the second one. But, you know, like for me, what I think was most interesting about those two is that when I was looking at them, again, you know, fans' perspective, in the Bloodsport versus Blacksmith match, Blacksmith had more of the damage and Bloodsport won. I mean, for me, from my perspective, it was because in that match, Bloodsport seemed to be a lot more mobile and able to do a lot more of the things that they were trying to do. Whereas in the Scorpios match, yes, Scorpios's weapon was damaged and they couldn't really use it for a lot of the match. However, they really controlled the pace and were very aggressive and didn't let Bloodsport do a whole lot. That was my perspective, but I'm curious to hear from all of you, like what your thought was in those.
Yeah,
I think that's what I thought.
oh yeah, what
Yeah,
did
so you were the dissenting for Blacksmith.
Yeah, I think what did it for me, if I can recall correctly, is there was more, I saw more damage done to Blacksmith and I didn't see damage on Bloodsport. I think that's what flipped the 1 point advantage there.
I think
Was that-
Al had it until the like last minute
Okay.
hammer blow that tore his hammer off. And
And
so
yeah,
that was a very risky move that cost him the fight, unfortunately. Like I think had that not happened, Blacksmith would have won the fight.
yeah.
But you know, you can't not count it just because it happened at the end of the fight. Although my wife she's like, what? It was just at the end. It's like, well, you know, damage is damage. And so that was unfortunate for Al, because I think he had a better robot than ever this year and was, you know, on his way to winning some fights there.
Yeah, but he did really well. I was that was something just watching the season again that I was thinking about, is making those upgrades and having the spinner axe situation. It was awesome. So I think that
It's a
really
hammer.
worked for him.
It's not an
Yeah.
axe, it's a hammer.
For the axe,
Hammer saws are great. They're
They're
Hammer.
getting popular, trendy now, and black
Yeah,
and green
it's-
paint are trendy too.
that's never not been trendy.
Well, I'll watch those fights, and I'll write something in the comments after I watch those fights. I'll do that.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
spice it in.
That would be cool to kind of like add that piece of things in. But I mean, you know, I've been watching BattleBots for a very long time. You know, I date myself, but obviously, like I've been watching for 20 years. I mean, you know, I've mentioned this like on the internet, but Lisa, like you're probably the person that made me the most interested in it in the first place. And I've been watching ever since. So
yeah, I was gonna say, well, you're not dating yourself. Like I've been in this since I was 10. So yeah, I'm like 70. You wouldn't you can tell, but
She moisturizes a lot.
yeah, I moisturize a lot.
But I mean, you know, even as a fan that's watched it for that many years, I fully acknowledge that I don't know anything about building a robot. So there are things that I'm inherently not going to understand, as opposed to the three of you, because you do know how to do that and you understand, you know, like if a robot's disabled in this way, like you probably know how that happened. Like that's just a big difference there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
so-
we should get some airtime to explain things.
Ooh.
on the show.
We gotta get our mic. We used to be mic'd. We used to be mic'd in the old days. They didn't bother with the mics last season because hey, mics cost money.
Hmm.
We're not gonna use them. But one thing we do that maybe isn't well known is that we do get together with Battlebots every year in the off season, and we do review those tough fights like the Beta versus Rotator and the Hydra versus Huge, etc. The ones that maybe we had to score it by the books, even though it felt wrong. And if following the judge's guide gives you a decision that doesn't feel as if it's in the spirit of the sport, then that's time for a rules tweak or rules rewrite, either for the judging or maybe for something that the refs have to take care of if it's terms of engaging, for example, or running away. So we do talk and we do put our heads together in the off season, and we do rev the judges' guidelines. We put some input into it, and I think one of the things that helped a lot, and the first time I judged, the scores were 3 for damage, 2 for aggression, 2 for control a few seasons ago. And what I soon found was that it was difficult on the close fights. Who cares about the shutouts? Those are cut and dry. But on the close ones, if it's a close fight, the damage is probably going to be 2-1. So one of the robots will be ahead by just 1 point. The difference between 2 and 1 is just 1. But then if you take 2 points to assign to aggression and 2 points to assign towards control, if it's not really a 1-to-1, and if it's even, I got to go 0-2, which makes a 2-point differential between robot A and robot B. So even though we're assigning more points to damage and it felt more important because it's supposed to be more important, the fact that it was an odd number and we were doing 2s for the others meant anything off askew made a 2-point differential. And in a way that kind of made aggression and control more important. If you could be off equal on those two, you could lose damage 3-0 and come out ahead 4-3. So we upped the scores to make them all odd. It's 5-3-3, which where I was sitting, I think that was a huge difference. So we want to make our jobs easier and better, and we don't want to be on the other end of the blame stick for these calls if we think we can tune the judging to make it fair for everybody and make the spirit of BattleBots be reflected in the scores. So we do a little bit of work in the off season, and because we care.
The judges care.
But where's this blame stick? What is?
I don't know. It's Facebook or Reddit.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Is that not a thing? Fix that. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing though to me is with the whole scoring, that there's not just the matrix itself, but there, and again, these things are things that people can find. There are actual defined things that say, okay, this is what minimal damage means, this is what that describes it, and that's essentially what you're working off of. And so if you look at that, a lot of the decisions make sense once you say, okay, this is what this means, this is what happened, then you get why it was scored the way that it was.
Yeah, I think we really worked on trying to make it, as objective as possible. And I think really the biggest change from 2020 to 2021 was in the damage category, how you score something that if one robot is untouched and the other robot has a tiny amount of damage, that is not a 5-0. And that was never codified until last year. So I was glad that made it in, where it's now very clear, that's the matrix. You've got the, and so you meet up there, it's a 3-2, it's not a 5-0. But a 5-0 damage fight, those pretty much never happen. So, it goes to a judge's decision. So it's kind of also funny that way, these really extreme cases, you won't ever see a 5-0 and then it be, 3-3 on the other direction. That would be nearly impossible to happen. Who knows? Maybe one day it will. We'll see that go down, where someone had so much aggression control but was obliterated. I don't know. I don't know how that happens.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would get 25 million views on YouTube.
But you're right. the matrix looks so simple, but it's really like we have a binder of definitions and instructions that we basically have to remember, but we review it if we have to. Yeah, there you go. So, you know, like Derek was saying, there's definitions of minimal, moderate, significant, massive. So it's really an equation. So for massive, you need to eliminate the function of at least 2 systems of the bot. For significant, it's eliminate the function of drive, defensibility, or weapons, or reduces effectiveness of 2. It's like there's just the huge equations for all of this. So yeah, it is pretty cool if you get to read it. I think it is on the Battlebots website for those interested.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's out there. It's helpful. I mean, you know, I know that even for myself reading it, it helped me kind of better understand, you know, that what's going into those decisions. It's not just like, I liked that robot better, so I'm just gonna, you know, it's really not anything like that. It's much more academic than that. So yeah.
And maybe I should say to all the people who think it's a conspiracy that if, for example, you know, we voted only for people like, so I've heard sometimes comments like, oh, Lisa's just voting for the women, or, you know, judging for the women. And it's like, if I did anything remotely against the matrix, it's in our contract that we would be sued for, I think, $1 million. It may be more now. So we don't have any intention of doing anything besides the matrix. There's a lot of money at stake.
But then people say you can afford $1 million because you're on TV. So yeah, you can violate it. Just pay the, who cares? Million schmillion, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So much money.
Yeah, pretty sure nobody wants to violate that. I did have a couple of random interesting questions. You know, like, granted, as you've said, sometimes you don't really remember, you know, the matches because it's so long, you know, they air so long after it actually happened. But have you ever, you know, scored a match live and then watched it back later and felt differently about it after seeing it, you know, on TV? Like, has that ever happened?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also influenced by the people who are viewing it in my house, and there's a couple of fights that my kids won't ever let me live down. I don't remember which ones they are specifically. I think it maybe Copperhead Mammoth was one of those ones.
Oh,
But they also blame Jason for some other ones for some reason, and they have
come
some.
on.
They're like, Jason, you know.
Send them
So,
over to my house. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we've gone over this, but what you see on TV and what you see in person is very different. So that's bound to happen. And like I've said already, like, I often don't remember which way I went. And, you know, usually I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I see it after I find out how I decided. But yeah, no regrets.
Yeah. I think sometimes for me, it can be a little different based on like what looks basically what the points are based on the scoring and the rules and the matrix and all that, and then watching it later and more of having the emotional viewing of it and judging of it sometimes doesn't align, where it's just sort of like sometimes you want to vote for the underdog and stuff like that, and so that's where there's a difference.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I definitely try to dissociate. We were talking about Friends before, and like conspiracies, of course. And no, like this for me, this is just too important to have any influence one way or the other. But you know, I try to think of it this way: like it's like maybe they're my friends over there in the red square driving, and maybe the person in the blue square has different political views from me, and not a fan. But then I'm not judging them; I'm judging the robots. And I have no feelings towards, you know, the robots. So it's a good way to dissociate. Maybe past experience. Everybody has, you know, their preferences on people and their opinions. But We're there to judge the robots, not the people.
Yeah, that's actually, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but that's why Mark Thorpe originally came up with this idea and thought it was a great idea to do Robot Wars, because he wanted to basically have a war, like it's not really a positive term, but have some sort of awesome competition where there's a fight to the death, but no people are injured. So his whole idea was like, I want to help humans and do something entertaining. So yeah, I think, yeah, this is about the robots.
Yeah, definitely. And then this is just a question that I've pondered because I mean I make no I love control bots. Like Slammo is one of my favorite robots ever. I wish that Craig Danby could win a giant nut or something. Like I love Slammo, but there's a lot of people that say that if you have a control bot, that you have no chance of winning a judge's decision just because you're not able to do damage. I would argue that it is harder, but it's not impossible. I really think that Scorpios and Bloodsport match, even though Scorpios obviously has a weapon, but they didn't have use of their weapon, and they did a great job with the control and aggression portion and ended up winning, obviously. So what do you all think about that argument that control bots have no place in the sport because they can never win matches?
I never built a control bot.
Yeah, this is a Derek question.
You guys both built control bots. Dr. Inferno Jr. control bot.
I
push broom.
captured, but then I ground him up,
I think that they absolutely can win. It's just you have to get really lucky for one, and basically be able to have a functioning weapon after engaging with a spinning robot, which is clearly easier said than done. But and my robot certainly couldn't do it. As
Once-
evidenced by the warhead fight. Not a spinning
Yeah,
robot.
the one time with Bombshell.
Yeah, but he was not running his vertical disc. They were like, let's make this fun and we'll put on the hammer. And I was like, yes.
But hey, that's a fight. That's, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Who your competitor is or what they're going to do. But that was one of the fights that I super, super enjoyed. Like I was really stoked to see that fight. I don't know if I ever told you that. I was just like, finally, it's like doing exactly, it's lifting the opponent and the fire is it's just working perfectly. And it was I could see stuff like the wheels or something, the tires dripping. And
yeah. I think they had these urethane spacers holding their sections of the robot together, and that was melting and raining down. It was great.
Messing up
but yeah, to actually stop a modern BattleBot spinner with a controller robot is really tricky. And this is, going back to season 1 ABC, this is why I put a net in the box, because it was like, okay, you're not gonna have wedges anymore, then what are we gonna do? And go through the rule book and they're like, well, they didn't include nets, so I'm gonna do this.
Right.
And
yeah.
I think that there's room there, not a net, but some sort of stuff, imagine chain link fence claws, or things that are not semi-fouling. I don't know. I think that there's room to get a little more creative with the grappling end effectors of these robots to maybe take damage but still remain effective.
You're still trying to bend the rules. You're still
not building a robot.
Rules.
I'm trying to tell other people to do that.
It sounds like,
you're
maybe
gonna judge them there, yeah.
maybe a large ladybug.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Lisa had the right idea.
I would, yeah, I would do that again. It's just, yeah, it was just life, but I talking about control, trying to, stop a spinner. I don't know if anyone knows this, but sorry, this damn light. I'm tugging the string to turn the light on. There we go. High tech. That's where all the money from BattleBots went to this string to turn the light on. So yeah, big story. What was it? It was a couple years, it was Mega Tento, so 2016. It was like the semifinals or finals, and all the robots that were in line, like any robot that was gonna go in to semifinals or something was they were all dying and like not they were people were just like jumping ship and unable to make it to fight Tombstone. So they're like, Lisa, we have no more backups. Do you want to fight Tombstone? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I got like the robot was ready. I got in line, and then eventually like whoever was one above me got the robot working at the last second. But I think that would have been amazing because like, yeah, that's like with the ladybug, you know, it's the perfect size to capture. And then I had lined with the plastic is very malleable, but inside I had spring steel, a ring of spring steel. So it would have just, Tombstone would have just like jiggled the whole thing.
Like
I
Jello.
think it would have been amazing.
That would have been cool. And that
Sorry, Jason.
that reminds me of 2016. One of the early fights, one of the, I think it was maybe it was the very first fight of Sawblaze. I remember Jameson was showing me his really cool weapon. It was aluminum. He had, you know, a couple of different blades at the time, and the one he led off with was like an aluminum disc with a chainsaw chain attached to it. Maybe it was sort of a sprocket to nestle each X little pin of the chainsaw in on his blade. And I looked at that and said, gosh, you know, each one of those little pins is that big, and that's going to be your weak point. And he hit the pig one, Razorback. He hit the pig one, Razorback. He hit him once, and the chain went off, and then all he could do was gum Razorback with his, you know, mushy aluminum disc or whatever it was at that time. So he didn't use his disc anymore, and he just used his dustpan, and he clobbered Razorback all over, upside down, back and forth, and he dominated and totally put on an amazing show. And Razorback was helpless the whole fight, but Razorback won the fight because Sawblaze wasn't using his weapon because it was only gumming a gummer at that time. And that was like a big eye-opening moment for a lot of people. And he felt kind of robbed, and it didn't feel right the way that played out. And that was sort of the shift away from control bots and shift towards got to use your weapon, if you want to call it a primary weapon, or you got to do damage, whatnot. And I felt my fight against Chomp was kind of in the same vein. Chomp, drunken master, flipping around a lot, fish out of water. But I did not nearly dominate Chomp, you know, remotely as much as Jameson dominated Zach in that one. But yeah, that was kind of, it felt like the death knell for control bots, because Dr. Inferno Jr. was not destructive. It was a four-sided offensive and defensive push broom. And I won by manipulating. Every fight was almost a judge's decision, and I was able to out manipulate the other guy. And yeah, I can't do that anymore. No more wedges, not just wedges, and you can't just get by with manipulation. Like now it's definitely more damage centric. We'll see where that goes.
It's interesting, the Sawblaze fight. I remember seeing Jameson after that, and I was like, hey, congratulations. He's like, what, I lost? I'm like, oh, whoops. Because I actually didn't see the decision. I just saw the fight and was like, oh, well, clearly he won that. But I believe
sure
they had,
like it.
Yeah, they had different rules back then though, about like primary weapon usage. That was like basically like you could not win a fight if you had not used your primary weapon. And so that's been sort of taken out, and that the removal of that rule though has caused obviously some controversial ones. Like I think it was the Ice Wave Scorpios fight that went for Scorpios, where Scorpios never used its weapon, or the beta rotator, you know, so
I judged for rotator on that one. Thank you. You too.
Yeah, well, at any rate,
just saying.
it gave us leeway to make decisions on these fights rather than being like, oh, well, he didn't use his weapon at all. And so that was, you know, that was the right call. But yeah, that was unfortunate about that season.
Yeah. I do have one last question that I'm just curious about, for each of you. If you could change anything or like introduce something into BattleBots moving forward in the future, what would it be and why? That could be a rule change, that could be an arena change, anything that you could think of. What would you like to see happen in BattleBots?
I've got one.
Oh.
So one of the reasons that BattleBots are hard to build is because of the materials used. It's been this ongoing ratcheting it up of, tool steel weapons and then abrasion resistant steel armor and chassis and everything. And it's gotten like pretty out of control. Like I am not envious of these builders because of the materials they have to work with to make these machines now. I think maybe it's time to reel that back in a little bit. And basically be like, no AR, no tool steel. Like everything needs to be mild steel, aluminum, titanium, like maybe not titanium, but stuff that's cheaper, easier to work with. And the destruction can still be the same as long as everyone's playing to the same rule set. It's just like, it's so much easier to build the robots and easier to fix them. Like they're not just immediately garbage because, there's no machine in the world that's going to unbend one of these frames. So that was an idea I had, that like partially cost control, also just to like make it more fun. Like I when I look at these things, I'm like, I can't imagine after a fight being like, okay, we're gonna go repair this now. Like brutal.
It's true. You watch the weapons now are so brutal, and they're slamming against the other robot's frame or wedge. It sparks and kapow, and then a moment later, you're like, that's not even scratched. Like, how was there no damage when there's this tremendous collision? All this energy. Yeah, they're so robust. That's yes, what you said.
Is that your answer? What do you
That's my
have?
answer. Yeah.
I mean, for
Materials.
Jason, or
Me?
Yeah.
No,
Jason was just agreeing with me.
embellishing. I already said my answer earlier. Certainly as a judge, and I think to make things clearer for all involved and all watching, I want to see that a victory dance, or preferably go back to the corner. It might actually speed up production because time is money, and sometimes, for example, if we want to go look inside the box at the robots after a fight, sometimes like, no, sorry, it's too late. We're loading them out. Or can you make him spin his weapon? Like, sorry, too late, when people are in the box. So I want to see the robots show their weapon movement and drive back to the corner where the doors open, which is where they should be anyway for a safe turnoff, with the robot on one side of the curb from the people. It's an optimal way to turn off quickly and safely. So drive them back, show the weapon, and air that and make it somehow rolled in to be somewhat official. Like, now here's the post action. So Chris and Kenny will say it, and it won't get edited out, and everybody will see what is and what isn't working on that robot. And Reddit will not need as many hard drives to store all the posts, all the people complaining. Next, Lisa.
oh my god. That's funny.
No, it's serious.
Reddit's never gonna stop. Okay. I don't know. I think a lot of stuff would be fun. There's a lot of answers I could say, but sort of the top of mind would be, and I don't know if it's like super feasible, but I sort of like the idea of, if something's getting a little boring, just sort of like the UK robot wars, maybe there's a house robot or something from the sides that comes in and just like smashes the hell out of the robots, or like, just like adds a little finesse. Like there's two robots sort of flopping around. And then, yeah, there's a huge house robot or huge claw or something that comes in and just destroys and makes it more interesting if there's a lull. Either that or some things for the judges to see. I really want to control a robot, but
You want to drive that house robot? Lisa, is that what you're saying?
I want to
And judge.
yeah, that's where I would give up judging if I could drive some house robots. But
Hmm.
I don't know.
Do you have to build
I
it
think-
though?
The kill saws are supposed to be that, but they don't work, and the slots are just a headache. So
Well, they can't
That-
move. Like I want like a huge house robot that actually goes towards where the non-action is happening and livens it up.
what about a pit?
Sure, a pit.
See, you're just like feeding the fuel of Robot Wars versus Battlebots, and there's gonna be so much I told you so. You're copying Robot Wars now.
There's a war between them. I mean, come on.
Sure.
It's all just
Robot Wars. Battle.
Hypnodisc is the best robot ever. That's what I heard.
It's pretty good. Okay.
Well, there we
That kind
have
of killed
it.
it.
Yeah, maybe none of our
Yeah.
ideas are, yeah. I don't know.
I kind of like the idea of some different hazards, maybe. You know, it's so fun because I had recently watched some of the Comedy Central stuff, just to watch it, and like just differences in the BattleBox hazards from
Oh.
then to now. It's, you know, just
Yeah,
kind
the
of
kill
spark
saws were-
some thoughts.
They were effective. The kill saws actually did
Oh.
something back then.
The robots are all too strong now. The arena hazards do little to nothing to any, even the softer robots now. They don't seem phased by them anymore.
I think the new strategy of pinning with the hammers is the right way to use them.
That's
And
kind
I-
of cool. Yeah.
I suspect that they will eliminate that. It'll be like, and now it'll just be like a momentary button or like a, you know, it won't it won't let you hold it down. One shot.
That's pretty cool. That's good TV though. I like
Pinning
watching
with the
that.
hammer. Yeah,
I like watching
think
that on
it's-
TV.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think people will cry foul about it, especially if people are just running the clock out with a hammer pin. But
Okay.
we'll see.
That's why you get a house robot to spice it up.
I
If
think
we were
they should
judging for strategy, I'd judge points for strategy.
allow mild entanglements. How's that?
Yeah.
I'm still
Different
waiting to see
spots
someone
in
dro-
that.
drop something behind a vertical spinner to catch it on the back, like as it's re-entering the
Ah.
robot. No one's done that. I think Shatter may have gotten close with their end of their hammer.
Somebody, maybe in the olden days, had a 2x4 and two very long extension springs, like garage door springs, perhaps, on the front of the robot. And the idea was it was going to catch and get looped around behind and do what the thing you said. Somebody did that once, but of course it didn't work. It just went
Yeah.
completely.
The thought experiments, it always works in the thought experiments. And then,
The stuff people come up with on the fly is great.
yeah.
I want
Actually,
a harpoon.
Yeah.
Harpoon?
Yeah, I
No,
want somebody to make a
someone-
harpoon.
In
What a scuba spear gun.
original Robot Wars days, I'm pretty sure there was like a harpoon, like, because you could have tethered projectiles.
Yeah. Missing Link, 1999.
Oh yeah, you had one.
Scuba spear gun. The Chia Bot. I got Chia Bot.
Oh,
With
Did you win?
I did.
Yeah,
With
I
the
beat you
chainsaw.
about once.
The chainsaw did something.
Hedge trimming.
it's fitting.
Yes.
I
think
do
they
have a real, I do have a
Go
real
ahead.
answer though. It's
Oh.
an act. Well, again, this one's probably too far fetched,
Come on.
but it's more like Derek's idea, where I really like the idea of evening the playing field and having it be more fun. Well, at least in my mind, it's more fun. And it's also more hectic, but everyone is just, there's no robots built ahead of time. Everyone's thrown into a place basically like junkyard wars, and you have like, 2 weeks or something to throw together a robot. Everyone starts off the same, with basically nothing going on. You build from what's there. You have the same amount of time and money and all of that. And then you fight, because it really levels the playing field. And I think then you could film the whole thing, and you could like see how people actually design and build. And I would love to do that.
I like that as an idea. Maybe not as like the main, the main thing, but like as an event, I think that would be a really cool idea.
Sideshow. Yeah. Okay. You heard it here first.
Yep, exactly. Let's do that.
right.
All right. Well, we covered a lot of stuff. That was great. And I definitely appreciate all three of you being here and discussing these things. And hopefully it will give the fans a lot more insight that they did not have before. We'll see. But for everybody that's watching the show, please let me know your thoughts and feedback. Let me know what you want to see, because I love doing shows like this and I want to do more of this. So yeah, hopefully you like it too. But we'll see you next time on the show.